Welcome to the Counter Narrative Podcast, a show designed to change the way we talk and think about education. By sharing stories of successes and triumphs, we aim to challenge the dominant narrative that often negatively portrays our disenfranchised populations. I'm your host, Charles Williams, an educator for 15 years, a current school principal in Chicago, and an educational consultant. Let's get started. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Don't believe me? Here's 5 reasons why. First, it's free. Second, there's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. 3, Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and so many more. 4, you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. And 5, it's everything you need to make a podcast, all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. In this episode, I chat with Tracy Scott Kelly, a 10-year veteran of teaching special education in California. He has taught grades K through 12 and is also both an adjunct and full-time lecturer at the university level, where he works with aspiring general education and special education teachers. Tracy has earned a BA in economics, an MA in special education, and is a doctoral candidate in educational leadership. He's even edited 6 books as he continues to write his own dissertation on the shortcomings of special education. During our conversation, Tracy shares his own educational story and how his academic struggles developed a passion for helping students experiencing similar issues. He points out that many school missions and visions sound great on paper, but questions if their actions support their words. Tracy, like so many others, speaks out on the facade that is school reform and confesses that little has actually changed. He believes that this is due to educators being forced into positions of managers as opposed to leaders. Tracy encourages us to stop waiting and to start doing, to speak up and provide the supports to push back against the norms. I hope that you enjoy listening to this episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. Hello and welcome to the Counter Narrative Podcast. Tracy, I am so excited to have you on board. How are you doing today?
Charles, I am good. Like most every day, I am good.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that things are going well. I know we are living in some hectic times, so it's always great to be great. But before we jump in, Tracy, if you could do me a favor and share with our listeners a little bit about who you are, maybe how you got into this field, what you are doing, and maybe a little interesting thing about you.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't think we have enough hours in the day for me to list everything, but there's no problem getting me to talk. I'm going to start with the fact that I am a high school dropout. I think that's extremely important in my journey because once I became an educator and started looking back over my own K-12 educational experience, I realized that there was not a single teacher after the 5th and 6th grade that attempted to make any relationship or attempted to know me at all. And the reason I go back to then, we had just moved to San Diego. My 5th grade teacher was Mrs. Thompson. Her husband was a naval officer on the USS Kitty Hawk, which is the Kitty Hawk. Give me a second. The one with the planes. I've just lost it. I had it a minute ago, and I just
Aircraft carrier.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, he was an officer on the aircraft carrier Kitty Hawk, which was big in San Diego. So the 5th grade year I had her, and she was phenomenal. And then she decided to take a combo class and have maybe 6 of us that stayed with her for now 5th and 6th grade. And it was a huge growth for me. She gave me the space I needed to grow. I'm doing algebra in 6th grade now because of her. I'm not 6th grade now, but I was then. because she gave me the space. She knew I had the capacity. She really motivated me for school. By that time, I had probably been in 8 different schools. By the time I got to 5th grade, foster child, all that, all that fun stuff, single parent, foster child, and whatever. Um, and then so I'll come forward to today, not today, but I got a GED after I joined the Marine Corps. I was 17 years old, joined the Marine Corps, got my GED, and moved on with my life. Fast forward to let me think, let me do the math. 2007, 2006, I graduated with my bachelor's economics. Didn't know what to do with it, but I know I wanted the degree. Um, Found a couple of corporate jobs that just were not a good fit for me. I am not somebody that's going to. I love data analysis and data entry, which is strange, but don't sit me at a desk for hours on end because I'll lose my mind. So 2010, January of 2010, I started substitute teaching long term for the rest of that school year. Signed an intern contract, which means I was a teacher, but I was still going through the process in special ed. In 2010, 2011 was my first contract year. That's when I realized that I should have always been in special ed, at least on this side of it. Gen ed teaching was not for me, only because with special ed, it was the right fit. It just felt like I was where I was at. It felt like I could make a difference. These kids, the students that we serve, excuse me, they don't always get a fair shake. They don't always get somebody that gives them the benefit of the doubt or the attention they need, which is what led me to stay in special ed. I've now done, I don't know, 10, 11 years K-12, and I've done all grades at K-12 because in California, your credential goes actually, K to 12, which also leads us, according to IDEA, up to the age of 22. So I can do kindergarten to the age of 22 special ed. I have 2 special ed credentials. I have a master's in special ed. My doctoral dissertation, which I defend my proposal on Wednesday of next week, is about
Oh,
special
okay. Good luck.
education. Thank you. Special education teacher self-efficacy, job satisfaction, those type of things. Just finished. So in California, and Charles, I forget. Are you in California? I forget.
No, so I am in the Chicagoland area.
Okay, so it starts with a C. It's pretty close. Same alphabet. We're good.
There you
Um,
go.
in California, to get your administrative credential, you can actually take the test, which is 2 tests. 2 tests. I passed the first one over the summer when I was writing my dissertation, and my first 3 chapters. And just this last Saturday, I took the second part. The pass rate on the second part is a higher percentage of first timers passing, so I expect to pass. We'll see what happens. So by the end of this current school year, I will have, the master's in special ed, the 2 credentials in special ed, the administrative credential, and the doctorate, all with an emphasis in special ed, and an EDD, not a PhD. I'm not writing a PhD. I'm actually would be leading educational leader. I've taught at the university full time. I've taught adjunct for a couple years in there, either teaching special ed to gen ed teachers in a preparation program or teaching special ed to special education teacher wannabes or future teachers in preparation program there. Man, I have gone nonstop and haven't even taken a breath. Um, so that is how we got here today. And I still feel that I'm a really good fit in a special ed classroom or any classroom, actually on any campus. I feel really comfortable because I irritate some people. Because one, I really have developed myself into an educational leader, understanding that in that position, I'm actually leading people to better themselves, whether it's staff, students, the dog catcher next door. It doesn't matter. My goal is to help somebody and give them the tools they need to make themselves a better version tomorrow versus what they are today. Whew, I take a breath.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. I mean, you seem to have come full circle from somebody who was a high school dropout to somebody who, by the end of this school year, I mean, you are going to, be potentially, and hopefully, if all goes well, next week Wednesday, an EDD. You're going to have your doctorate. So, first of all, congratulations and best of luck to you. But you have definitely seen and embraced, this idea of what needs to happen in education. You pointed out that nobody really tried to build relationships with you, after the fifth and sixth grade year, and you attributed that a lot to your high school dropout. So I guess what I want to ask you then is, taking this experience and everything that you have done, what are some of the ways that you are now trying to change the narrative? I mean, you're in a great place that you're training teachers, you're sharing your story. And so, what are some of the ways that you're trying to change the narrative around education?
Okay, well, education is a system. It is a ton of money coming and going. It is an albatross. Things are just not necessarily out of control, but we really haven't changed our educational system since we really had a formalized one, with the single classroom schoolhouses. I mean, I'm sure most of your listeners have seen or heard a list of what it was like to be a teacher in 1950, 1958. I forget the date of that one form that says you can't be married, you can't do this, you have to wear a dress, you have to, you know but we still taught the kids what they needed to know at that time. And I really don't think we've changed the overall system that much. We've just thrown more stuff at the system. um, with that being said, I believe our educational system needs not just a major overhaul. I think a major overhaul is short selling what we need. We need to come in with something new, something much more directed and open. It's not everybody's going to learn the same thing at the same time. I mean, our high school dropout rates are still in the 20%, 25, 30%, depending on your city and state. Um, Grade level. I mean, our gen ed teachers, or excuse me, not our gen ed teachers, our general education students as a whole can be a year or two behind. Just that's the average anymore. And I can't say it's going to be testing that's doing that. I can't say it's you know having lower standards for teachers in different states. It's just a mess. It needs to be changed dramatically. So my direct tie to that is I'm actually running for my local school board. Um, and that itself is an interesting thing. And going through that process, and I actually had to leave my job at my local school district because I can't be in the district and run for the school or being a school board member. So I left my district to go to a neighboring so that I could run at this attempt to be on the school board. Um, and I've felt that our local school board has had a tendency to not be educational leaders, and what that means is they have not necessarily push the envelope on how we address curriculum, how we address job satisfaction, how we address what information the kids are getting. It's kind of been like, oh, okay, well, we're good old boys, and we'll do some stuff, and the kids will learn some stuff, and people will get paid, and then they'll move on. Uh, in a short, simple phrase, homie, don't play that. I don't have time to sit back and let people just be okay. Everybody is not a Rhodes Scholar. Don't even know if I know how to spell road the right way. Is it RHODE? Is it ROAD? I don't know. Um, but that's not how education should be. Education should be so much more than it is. We do a man. I ramble. Sorry, Charles. We do
No,
a,
no, no,
a
you're fine.
we do a great job of saying, "Oh, I'm for the kids. Our district is for the kids. We want all kids to be lifelong learners and self-sufficient society members and blah 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 blah." That is just a bunch of stuff that we say, and there are a lot of great people. There are a lot of great districts that actually believe their mission statement, their vision statement. They follow through. They push the kids. They push their staff, but they're also patient and humble with it, and go through the humility process. But we have way too many that are like, well, yeah, it's all for the kids, but can I leave at 3 o'clock every Monday? Wait a minute, I need 47 minutes of lunch instead of 45. It's not enough for me. Um, well, yeah, it's great for the kids, but we don't have the money, so we're not going to be creative and hire a grant writer to find more money. We're just going to take that elective away because, yeah, they might like it, but does it really help our vision for what we want them to be? Cut the crap, get it out of the way. If you're going to be for the kids, be for the kids. And I was speaking to somebody a couple weeks ago. Um, just Charles, just to clarify for everybody that doesn't know me, which is 99.9999% of the world. Um, my wife is a special education teacher as well, and truthfully, I've learned probably, she doesn't like when I say this, but I say about 50% of how to deal with kids from her. She has taught me so much, and we daily probably have 2-hour conversation in our walks about kids and attitudes, and now unions and leadership. And I think I've expanded the opportunity for her to find out what kind of leader she is in education, as well as she has taught me how to better serve my kids and or behaviors. She's been phenomenal. And I forgot where I was going, but let's go back to pushing the envelope. Yes, here it is. So I was talking to somebody a couple weeks ago, and um, I had a superintendent that I was talking to recently, and talking about recently, excuse me. I've talked to her as well, but also about her. And she does not strike me as an educational leader. She strikes me as an educational manager, which a lot of our administrators are, a lot of our classroom teachers are, and then, of course, a lot of our boards throughout the country are as well. They're just, you know, how does this benefit me? I'll sit here on this board, and like I said, a lot of them help the kids and help the entire district and help their community. A lot of them don't. It made me realize, especially since I am running for the board, that every day I am willing to put my job on the line because it's for the kids. And while that's my criteria, that's my wife's criteria as well for the most part. I mean, she wants to be a little bit more secure. I'm kind of like, I've done everything now. What's another one? Um, but and that's how I plan on serving. That's how I serve now. And I think we as educational leaders or educators overall, if we truly believe that we are in it for the kids, and especially if you're in special ed, but gen ed as well, if you're really for the kids and you feel something is not being done correctly for the kids that you have today, and if you don't speak up, you've not only shortchanged yourself, you've shortchanged the kids and any future kids, because it gets to be a habit, right? You've shortchanged your employer, which is your district and or your school, and you've shortchanged your community, all because you're not comfortable speaking up. One of the As a mentor teacher, one of the things I worked with a lot is tenure teachers who would tell these new teachers, don't open your mouth for the first 2 years. Wait till you get tenure, and then you can act the way you want. I mean, that's pushing it a little bit, but that's basically the idea. And I've always said, no, I don't think that's fair to yourself or to anybody else. Because if you're nice and quiet the first 2 years, you get tenure, first day of your third year in California. And now you're like, whoo, I'm going crazy. I'm going to start speaking out for the kids. No, you're not, because you've already wasted 2 years and you've built up that habit to not speak out for the kids. If you do, that's great, but odds are you're not going to. I think it's my responsibility to let my administrator, my district, my school, everybody that I come in contact with, to let them know what type of person I am from day one. That way, when I do go crazier, they're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense, and that's who he is. So that's how I am education. That's what I believe we should be doing, and that's what I strive to do on a daily basis. Doesn't work every day. but I definitely push the envelope and I try.
And I appreciate you trying, Tracy. I mean, you shared so much here, and I really liked this idea of educational leaders versus educational managers. So many individuals who are tasked with leading education are simply managing. And so, as you mentioned, they're not pushing the envelope, they're not really making any changes. And so this is obviously one of the biggest obstacles to, making these changes that we know needs to exist, as well as you talked about, kind of teachers falling into their comfort zones. Are there any other major obstacles out there that you're aware of, or that you've witnessed, or maybe you've even, come across that, are kind of stopping people from taking that step forward, or for, like you said, pushing that envelope?
So, and if I've mentioned this before, just please remind me, because like I said, I talk off the cuff and I have a tendency to speak my truth, which isn't everybody's truth, but it's mine. And so I may repeat myself on occasion. Um, so I'm a real big guy on, well, not real big. I'm only 5'8" or 5'9", whatever I am. But I mean, I'm real mentorship, motivation, helping your individual, your neighbor, helping the other teacher in the classroom next door, helping the kid that doesn't know how to tie his shoe yet, and he may be in third grade, and while you think he should know how, it doesn't mean anybody's ever taught him. So I think our attitude and our lax attitude, especially of our educational managers, really is the biggest roadblock to me. If you've got a board, a school board, and it doesn't matter what city, what state, you know, where you're at, because so many other countries are like us anyway. Um, if you have a school board that is pushing the envelope, they may do it tentatively. I struggle with some words because I'm a speech student as well. Um, but if they're pushing the envelope, that that is leadership by modeling, right? So if your school board's pushing the envelope, that gives your superintendent or executive director, whatever you may have, it gives them permission and the support they need to push the envelope. That then goes down to your site administrators that says, hey, my superintendent says I can push the envelope. They're going to support me. They're going to tell me if I've gone too far, but we're going to do something. That in turn goes down to your teachers. It goes down to your custodial staff. It goes down to your instructional paraprofessionals. It works its whole way backwards, right? So if the leaders are actually leading, whether crazy leading or checking the temperature of the water to see how far they can go within whatever particular state or district you're in or county, it makes a big difference. I mean, we're always going to have, let's just start at the top. We're always going to have the president. We're always going to have somebody that sits in Betty DeVos' seat. We're always going to have uh, governors. We're always going to have mayors. We're going to have all these people that tell us what we should do. But if you read the fine print, if you actually sit down and read what the parameters are, you can actually find how you can make it work the way you want to make it work. I don't know if you've ever heard of Destination Imagination, but it's a phenomenal program of basically enrichment that's sometimes school sponsored, sometimes it's just teams by themselves, but typically revolves around education as a unit. One of their mottos is, if it's not in the rules, you can do it. And what phenomenal freedom that is to say, well, it says on Tuesdays you'll wear a shirt. Awesome. I'm going to wear a shirt with 3 armholes, 2 neck holes, and it's going to be bright pink because I want to be noticed today, right? I mean, total freedom to say, if it's not in the rules, you can do it. Our governments have a tendency to use the word loopholes. It's not a loophole. They wrote that in there. Who are we kidding with this word loopholes? They wrote it that way on purpose. So that's kind of my philosophy. And I think that should be a lot of our educational leaders' philosophy. If it's not in the rules, I can do it. And if it is written in the rules, how can I use their language to best suit my situation? Because interpretation, as lawyers and attorneys will tell you, interpretation is, I'm going to tell you this, 9/10 of the law. Oh, well, I read it to say this. Okay, we can have that discussion, we can come to terms, and we can move on with our lives. But I'd much rather be, as I say, proactively progressive and pushing that envelope than waiting back for somebody to tell me what I can and cannot do. Because if I'm waiting for somebody to tell me what I can and cannot do, I've already lost. And so I need to push. I want to push. I want to use the law to stay within the law. But if it's not there, that means I can do it. And I think, coming back to your question, the takeaway should be, I just lost it. Can you imagine? I just lost what it is. But the takeaway should be, that's our biggest barrier. Our biggest barrier is adhering to the limitations that we believe somebody else put on us, either as individuals or as an educational system. And I think that's the problem.
Tracy, I absolutely agree with this idea that you talked about these systems of supports. I've been saying this for a while now, that we encourage people to step out. We encourage people, as you said, to push the envelope. This idea to say, you know what, I'm not going to adhere to these limitations that you've put on me. But then if there's not a system of support there, what incentive do I have? As you mentioned earlier with your wife, and I'm sure my wife would agree, like, hey, we have a standard of living, right? We have bills that need to be paid. We have children that need to be taken care of. We have things, that need to be supported. So if you take a step out onto that ledge, it's good to know that you are going to have individuals there who are going to support you, who are going to catch you, who are going to make sure that you're okay because you're doing what is right for our students and for our educational system. So I am so happy that you brought that up.
Well, I mean, Charles, let's just take a teacher. And like I said, and this to me applies to everybody in life anyway. One, if you want to do it, you're going to do it. Somebody asked me, I think it was that same conversation a couple weeks ago, what is my main takeaway from my K-12 system, right? The time that I spent being educated in the K-12. And, I've already said I'm a high school dropout. I struggled. I did this, I did that. And my answer to them was nothing educationally other than the title of dropout, which I still hold on to because I've earned that. But it was my mom telling me I can do anything that I want to do. Like I said, I was a foster kid. My brother was a foster kid. I'm the only, well, so I love my mom to death. But by the time she was 21, she had 3 kids by 3 different fathers and was married to none of them. And that's her life. And you know what? She was a phenomenal mother, but she enjoyed life too, right? She's not going to sit home and knit socks for me. She wanted to live her life. And I think that's where I learned how to push the envelope because my mother, and she's still alive. She's had some mental issues. She's not the same person she was, but she said, if somebody asks you a question that you don't necessarily, or if somebody asks you a question, answer with a question. How much time are you willing to put into me for me to trust you? And oh man, my mom she just told me another story a couple of days ago about some stuff she got into. But I think that's very important because look at, and one of my sons loves Amelia Earhart. Look at how many buttons she pushed. Look at what she did to become a female pilot that people actually recognized. They say, what is the phrase? Um, Quiet women don't make history, I think is how it goes. And I apologize. I don't know who to give credit to. But that's it, right? If you're going to be calm, collected, and I know this just came up in politics, the Stepford wife issue, right? And it's not the issue,
Hmm.
but if you're going to be complacent, you're going to be unhappy with your job, you're going to be all these different things. You're making that choice. If that's what you want to do, great. If that satisfies all your needs, great. That's for you. But there are so many people that want to be better that they push themselves. And now I come back to the point. Oh, and I forgot my point again. Um, but I was talking about how all school personnel should feel supported, how we should, obviously, if we're not going to take risks if we don't feel supported. And once again, just look at the teachers. Most of them are going to have a bachelor's degree, a 4-year degree. I know probably in your state, New York, California, my state, and for the most part, Texas, and whatever other states in between, you've got a bachelor's. You've got some grad work to get your credential or your certificate, depending on what your state calls it, right? If you don't feel confident enough that your degree gave you some options, then maybe that wasn't the right degree for you, or maybe you haven't matured into what capabilities you really have. I've turned 40 quite a few years ago, and you don't get to 40 without having some bumps in life, some tribulations. Life is not easy, but it is what it is of what you make it. I mean, there is no reason. One of my book ideas, Charles, from way back when is two sides of the same coin. Statistics don't always tell the numbers. So, my best friend in high school, and we're still friends today, but I wouldn't use the word best anymore, but we still contact with each other. We still come in contact. We talk to each other. Single parents. We both, multiple fathers in the picture. Nothing, it is what it is. It's my normal. He graduated high school. He went on to join the Air Force, got out of the Air Force, and at this point in his life, he is 52. So that tells you I'm 52 ish. And he spent over 25 years of his life either in state prison or federal prison. Okay. And now trying to, he's now working in the trades, trying to keep a job. He's been out for 3 years now out of his last stint. I think it's 3 years. And he's in his third job, but he does have a high school diploma. He does have some training that he received in prison. Okay. That's what it is. Me, once again, we're same neighborhood, basically, high school dropout, called myself a quitter until I ran my first marathon when I was 33 years of age, because I'd been to so many different schools that I had trained myself that if I don't like something, it gets too hard, I'll just quit and reinvent myself somewhere else. It's not a big deal. Life is, at some point I'm going to pass on, but reinvent yourself, because that first day of school, and if you've never been to that school before, it's like, oh, these people don't know me. Oh, I don't know them. I don't have a support system. I made myself my best support system ever. Me. I can rely on myself. Now I want to do that for everybody else I come in contact with. So even if you are a teacher in a school that you don't feel is ran well, you don't feel it is supportive, guess what? Be the support for somebody else. It is so easy. It is so satisfying. It is so everything human that we should be doing it every day of every moment. Am I the right support for every person? Oh, no. A lot of people think I have lost every marble that God ever gave me. And that's okay. But the ones that I come in contact with, those students that I serve, whether it's a gen ed, whether it's special ed, whether it's a custodian that cleans my room once a week, I can say hi. I can try to make them feel better with giving them a smile, giving them some attention, giving them some positive reinforcement. As a teacher, you can make a difference on your campus. Are you in control of everything? No, you're not, and that's just how life is. So we deal with that. But you have the opportunity to change somebody else's life, and in turn, that changes your life. And I could be miserable at school. Oh, it was just one of those days. Every lesson went bad. The kid threw stuff at me again. I'm tired of spit in my face. Whatever the problem is, if I bring that home to my kids, I've ruined their day. If I come home and say, woohoo, had another good day. How's it going here? What can we do? Let's go outside and play for a minute. Let me check your homework. Let me do whatever. Then I have changed everybody's life just by not letting one thing get me down. And yes, it's hard. And yes, it took me a long time to get here. But you know what? That is okay, because life is on the job training. Once we've learned what we need to learn, our time is up. But until that moment, if I am not a true lifelong learner, and you'll find that I don't use that phrase, especially in writing, because we use it too much to say I gave up learning because I'm a teacher. I don't have to teach. I don't have to learn anything new. You have to learn it. Horrible. If you're a lifelong learner, you don't need to promote it. Your attitude towards people will tell them that. The way you look at life in the morning when you're lucky enough to crawl out of bed tells everybody what they need to know. If you need to brag about being a lifelong learner, I'm going to be skeptical. Skeptical. Doesn't mean you won't change my mind, but I'm going to be like, are you really? Let's see. What's the last thing you learned? Oh, I took a college course when I finished my credential 35 years ago. And since then, I just go through life and I don't want to get a new phone because I'll have to learn a new system. Oh, I buy the same model of car year after year so that when I get a new car, so that I don't have to learn new buttons. Okay. Have a nice day. How can I help you tomorrow?
Hmm.
Um, you know what I mean? And I'm not going to apologize for going on because if you want me to stop you, you'll stop me. But I will go on forever. Well, I don't. I've never really said I've been passionate about much except life. I'm definitely passionate about life, but I have learned that not only am I passionate about life, but this education thing, I am just. In case you can tell, I know a few things, but I'm just over the top. I am a lot to handle, but I only think I am a lot to handle. One is because I feel I have to overcome a lot of other educational managers or people that don't feel they need to continue to learn to be a better educator. And we do a disservice to our profession by saying, "Oh, I'm only a teacher. Yeah, I'm a lifelong learner, but I don't want a new phone because it's got more buttons than my old phone, or less buttons, depending on how you look at it." I think I got a rotary phone here. I don't know who I'm kidding. This is a smartphone. Um, but like I said, I hope this isn't a horrible podcast because I don't want your listeners to say, "Oh, I can't listen to him anymore because this Tracy guy has lost his fudging mind." And I know I use my words carefully, so I use the word fudge a lot because it's my favorite dessert.
No, Tracy, you know what? I think if anything, our listeners are going to appreciate the openness, the honesty, the authenticity that you bring in these conversations. Yes, your thoughts may be all over the place, but the reality is that is how we operate. If we are having natural conversations, our minds are running, they're kind of all over. And so, you are ensuring that you are covering everything. So I appreciate the thoroughness that you are providing. But as we begin to wrap up here, I would like to ask you this. How can individuals touch base with you? How can they find you? How can they see the work that you're doing? Because I am sure there are individuals out there who are listening to your story and saying, I want to learn more about what he has to offer. And so, can you just share with us whether it's Twitter, Instagram, social media, whatever it may be?
Yeah, I can share a lot as this conversation lets everybody know. But I'm going to start with a different point, and then I'll come back to my how I can be reached. Dr. Mark Alter is a NYU professor in special ed and has been around since we used the terminology mental retardation. So we're talking he goes back to the 60s. Um, and I reached is that the right word? Yeah, I reached out to him because I heard him on a podcast somewhere that somebody had sent me, and he is actually the special education expert in the parents of special education students that are suing Los Angeles Unified School District. A huge case it's going to be. He is the expert for them, but I didn't find that out until after I contacted him. And he is somebody that I'm actually going to have a Zoom meeting with next week, only because I took the chance to reach out to him, and all I knew was his name. Didn't know what school he was at. Didn't know where in the world he was. Um, and that's the kind of thing that drives me, right? If you hear something you like, reach out to them. So, with that being said, here I go. Twitter at Tracy Scott Kelly, TracyScottKelly, Tracy Scott Kelly. And yes, I am a male. With the name Tracy and Kelly, it confuses a whole lot of people. Don't worry about it. My mom knew what she was doing, and sometimes I wonder. Um, I'm on Facebook a little bit. I don't do a ton on Facebook. And Charles, I feel comfortable enough to share with you. To me, Facebook is medicinal marijuana. whereas Twitter is crack cocaine or meth or whatever you want to call it. And only because of the speed in which they move and there's interaction. Like I said, if any of your listeners have any drug issues they need to deal with, contact me and we'll figure it out together how to get you some help. I don't do either one of those, but I move fast. My Instagram is just Tracy Kelly 1967. I think I don't pay enough attention to Instagram other than I do post pictures every morning, inspirational pictures of the view of my backyard because I'm at 5,600 feet of elevation, so I'm in some mountains. But when I look across my backyard, I see mountains that are taller than mine. And I can actually see the top of Mount Whitney, which is the highest point in the continental United States, from my backyard. So I'm really blessed to have a mountainous view out my backyard. I'm on Voxer, but I don't spend any time there. I don't know. It's just interactive with one person at a time. It moves too slow for me. Twitter, if you really want to get hold of me. Like I said, Facebook. I do have a. So this is what I learned about Facebook. I set up my first group over the summer. First time I've ever set up a group. And my Facebook group is Elect Tracy Kelly for TUSD School Board. That's how I learned how to set up a group because I'm still running for school board. And once again, most of my material that you're going to find anywhere on social media about me, or at least that I put out there, is positive. How can I help? Or the phrase "we're all on this together." Yeah, we're all in life together, but my life is not your life, and I don't expect your life to be my life. And yes, we do have some commonalities, but none of us have rowed the same boat every day of our lives. None of our lives are identical. And if they are, you really need to step outside of what your neighbor's identical is. It's too much. Be your own person. Be you. Be what you want to be.
Well, Tracy, I want to say thank you so much. This has been a phenomenal recording. It is vastly different from the ones that I am accustomed to. But like I said, I love the authenticity. I didn't feel as if you came with a script. I didn't feel as if you came with something to sell. So I do appreciate it. And so I want to say thank you for everything that you're doing, in the world of education and for being on the show. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Charles, I should be the one saying thank you. And I'm going to be the one that says thank you because I appreciate the fact that you were able to let me have this platform today. I hope your listeners, if they reach out, that's great. But I hope if nothing else, they take away from here today that they decide how they want to live and they decide what their envelope is. So I appreciate it, Charles.
All right, not a problem. Well, you take care, and I'm sure that we will talk soon.
Thank you, sir.
I want to thank you for listening to the Counter Narrative Podcast. If you like what you're hearing, please be sure to like and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. You can also follow the show on Twitter at the CN Podcast and the host at _CW Consulting. Take care.